So I want to introduce Peter De Cabooter. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yep. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Owner and general manager of the Hideout Lodge and Guest Ranch in Shell, Wyoming. And Peter, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm actually really looking forward to this interview as much as anyone.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think what you do is very interesting. It's very unique. The Hideout Guest Ranch is focused on riding, horsemanship, and working cattle, riding on 650,000 acres and limited to 25 riders weekly. The Hideout has a herd of 130 horses consisting of quarter horses and a growing number of Mustangs. Unlike many guest ranches, the Hideout herd uses both geldings and mares. The ranch is a destination for riders for all over the world, and really encompassing a variety of disciplines and riding levels. So because you do see people that are almost pure beginners, right?
Yes. So so there are around 1,400 guest ranches in North America, and then all guest ranches, of course, they have horses. But unfortunately, the entire industry is actually whenever you get a consultant that comes to a guest ranch, they will tell you, and the association will tell you, well, horses is one thing, but you need to actually go into adventure travel because that's a bigger market. I understand that from a marketing point of view. So you need to actually be less focused on horses, but more like zip lines and swimming pools. Okay, we have a swimming pool also, and other activities. So you go to that, and I've worked in international marketing most of my life. So I said, okay, if everybody goes south, then I probably need to go north. Not that I had a lot of experience with horses, but I say, okay, we're a small organization. Let's just focus listening to our customers, because we start to see people coming to the guest ranch that say, well, we went to this place, but it's not about horses anymore. We went to this place is they don't really focus on horses anymore. We went to this place and they don't have enough horses. So we said, okay, fine. We're just it's everything in life is about focus. And so we're going to focus this ranch on horsemanship, horses, and get really specialized in that niche. So we call it a riding ranch. And I think a riding ranch, everybody thinks, well, a riding ranch is only for very experienced riders. No, a riding ranch is like your organization, International Horsemanship Association. It's focused on getting the best out of horse and rider, and actually offering an opportunity that everybody can enjoy a week like that. So we get people actually that are like incredible riders. I mean, my accent, I'm a Belgian born in Africa. So in Belgium, as you know, it's one of the big centers of jumping. So we get a lot of Belgian jumping people here, or they're dealing in jumping horses. So they need to have a great time also. They know, of course, about horses, maybe not about Western riding or herding cattle, but of course they know how to ride a horse. We get people that are absolute beginners that are actually looking for a vacation where they can actually learn more about horses. And we get people that want to see. Most of the people that actually come to the ranch, they are really happy that we respect horses, that we care for horses, and that we have happy horses. So from there, our focus. So if you see the focus, it wasn't that difficult to find the focus for what we want to do. It needed to be about horses. It needed to be ethical. It needs to be upscale, high quality, and it needs to be authentic with processes, procedures, and it needs to be an organization with an open mind so we can learn. Because, of course, me coming in new into the industry, I start to see that people in Wyoming say on the ranch, well, it's only quarter horses and Western saddles. Well, 90% of people that come here, they ride English. So you cannot start exclude that. So, and then I love Arabian horses. As you know, I bought one. So they call it an Arab, and of course, that's a bad horse. Or this horse is bad. And Mustangs, those are like, that's dog food. So I said, well, of course, for me, those are all things that are so natural to work with if you want to be a horse destination.
Sure.
So we start to bring the Mustangs in also. The other thing we want to be really, and that's because probably my business background, we wanted to be organized and structured. And then that in the end, and clean, so that in the end pays off in liability. Because of course, getting into this industry in the US, it's a big liability. Somebody falls off a horse and you get sued. Some people are looking to sue you. But of course, the people that have bad intentions, they are going to look for somebody that's not well organized. So if you organize well, you document everything well, you care, they see your horses are well cared for, there is less risk that they're going to sue you. And the side, like we just talked about, there's a lot of positive things about that also, because our insurance premium goes down, because the insurance company says, well, the way you operate is actually, we should cut you a deal on your premium, because it's the risk that you will have a lawsuit, touch wood, of course, but is actually less than maybe ranch A, B, or C or something. So it's actually pretty logic.
Well, I think that's a really good thing for people to hear, especially those who are looking to be professionals, because I do believe that the more you present yourself as a professional in every way, the less of a target that you make yourself. And a lot of that goes into also the relationship that you have with your clients, and the care that you take with those clients. And when you create a good atmosphere, it's much less likely that someone's going to sue you.
And people need to feel like horses, because it's all like a universal concept. Your customers, we call them guests at the guest ranch, they need to feel that they're not be seen as they need to, it's a hospitality business, and they need to see you looking at them as that you take the responsibility to give them a safe, nice, and enjoyable vacation, that you really care. Not that you just see those people walking in with a bag of money and, okay, give me your money and disappear. No, here, of course, you need to make money in any business, but the focus is really to offer people like an incredible, great week. And that's the same for the horses. If you have horses, you need to care for them. If you have a good crew, we have great people to work with, you need to really care for them. And if everybody cares about each other, then they will care about the horses, and then they will care about the guest, and then people will come back. I mean, we have a high return rate of word of mouth and guests that come back because of that reason. So
and would you say that your very unique location is also a big draw for people?
It is, yeah. So we are, often people say, well, you're hard to reach. Of course, we're in Shell, Wyoming, so you need to fly, especially international guests, they fly, but even from the US, you need to fly a lot of flights, travel a lot, then you fly to, the planes always get smaller and smaller, then you get to Cody, and that's a small town, and then you need to still drive an hour and a half. So say, well, it's hard to reach. I said, well, look around us. There's nobody living here. It's an incredible variety of terrain. If it would be an easy destination, don't you think there would be a lot of houses around here? So, and the area is really, so in every positive, every situation, there's a positive and a negative. So we see it always as a positive, but it's also an area, as you know, with an incredible variety of scenery. And
yes.
So we go from 4,200 feet in the valley to 11,000 feet in the mountains, all different scenery. And then we trailer out for about, which we're unique in that also, we trailer out for 95% of the rides with our trucks and trailers, which you do on a big ranch anyway. So it gives us enormous flexibility to use the variety of terrain. And it also forces you to have, again, to have great horses, because everybody is always amazed at all these horses, and we use stock trailers. There's no ramp to go in. So all these horses, they go in the trailer like several times a day. They drive very narrow, steep roads, and we never have a problem of a horse that doesn't want to go into the trailer. And we never actually make a problem of that. I've never seen a horse here, a new horse, that does not want to go in the trailer. I think sometimes we think this horse will not go into the trailer. Well, the horse says, well, I'm not going to go into the trailer. So it's a lot of, I think that's with people the same thing. Is a lot of common things.
And so I think maybe even the variety of terrain that you offer also makes it possible for a guest to think, well, I haven't seen everything. I haven't done everything. I have to come back. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, because we have people that have come here 20 times, 25 times, and we still make it a point that they see different terrain, which is, of course, on 650,000 acres, is not very difficult. You just go from one trail, you go 5 miles further, and you got a different trail. And it's also great for the horses to explore new terrain, because if they, just like for the wranglers and for us, for the guests, new guests, it's all new trail. But then if we've done the trail so many times, so we're always excited to go and explore new terrain, which is actually really good for the horses also, because a horse you need to kind of challenge the comfort zone of the horses also. So they discover new terrain, which is really big fun also.
Very good. So I just want to remind everyone, if you have a question, please use the chat function that you see on your screen and type in your questions for Peter. He would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. For those of you who came in a little bit after we started, welcome to the IHA live event here with Peter De Cabooter, who is the owner and operator of the Hideout Guest Ranch in Shell, Wyoming. And I want to thank you again, Peter, for joining us, because I think this is a really interesting topic, honestly. In the age of people not getting to touch horses on a daily basis and not being exposed to really wild territory, which is where you are. It's quite wild and uninhabited. It's such a unique thing that people can have access and availability to a facility like yours. Can you tell us what is it that you do to, and you've already touched on this a little bit, to keep your horses happy and healthy?
So I think that goes again, that's again a very universal concept. How do you keep your crew happy? How do you keep yourself happy? How do you keep your dogs happy? How do you keep your guests happy? It starts by really caring. You can say, well, I'm going to run this operation, but if you're not authentic in really caring for those horses, or we say, well, I'm going to have a great team spirit with my staff, but you're not really respecting them or you don't care, people will feel that. So I think it starts out all with yourself, like saying, we're going to have this horse operation. We have 130 horses. You know, they're really like employees. They are like employees that work hard. And if somebody comes here, I give my ranch tours every Sunday. If somebody comes here and they think they pay money and they're going to ride a horse like a motorcycle, we will say, I think there are other places for that. But here, you need to respect our horses. People always like great horses, but then you can train those horses. But then the most challenging job for a horse is every week different riders, or we change out horses on almost on a daily basis. That's hard for a horse because a horse always has to adapt to that. So we tell people, we give a very long orientation on Monday morning for new guests. And some people say, well, I want to hop on my horse and go riding. Well, no, you do that with your bike. You don't do that with your horse. So they have to really go. They fill out the questionnaire, we prepare a horse for them, and then we give safety orientation, and then we show them how we want them to ride our horses. Some people are better in that than others. And the horses are, of course, very smart in testing out how they can cheat on the people, especially the mares. But I think it all comes down to have happy horses. You need to have a lot of horses. A lot of operators with 25 guests per week, they have maybe 45 horses. The reason we have 130 horses, and we need to probably go to 150 horses, is not only for the different levels of riders, but you need to give those horses physically a rest. So we change them out. So nobody rides the same horse throughout the week here. So we change them out like every day, every 2 days for people. They can try different horses, but everybody forgets that even if that horse can handle that terrain physically, it needs mental rest with his friends, with his buddies in the pasture. So they go in the pasture and say, well, that horse, well, it could still do a day, but you can see that horse starts to shut down. And so you need to put him in the pasture again. So it's about the physically and the soul of the horse. And then, of course, we have all the people we employ need to buy into the way we handle horses. From the horseshoer, who is our horse trainer, when a horse comes in, every horse goes through his hands. First thing he does with the horse, can I touch the horse's feet? I mean, I'm not a horse professional in this industry, but I'm surprised. I'm coming out of the car industry dealing in tires. So would you trust a 911, a Porsche 911 on ice but one of the tires is not good? So that's the same for horses. So if you can't touch the feet of a horse, would you want to put somebody on that horse? No. So our horse, the farrier, he knows he has the business. So if he wants to work 3-4 sessions, and we pay him for that, to work with the feet of the horse, to just make sure that we can touch those feet and that the horse is happy to be shot, well, that's great. We can never allow somebody to sit on a horse that you need to sedate to shoe it. That's crazy. That's where you get into problem. And that's caring about horses, I think. So we have a good vet. So the vet goes through our twice a year we check everything. We have the local vet, and we have a very specialized vet in horse vet that works all over the US. But it's all the people that handle the horses need to be consistent. If a horse needs training, we're going to put the horse more in training. Actually, Farah is doing one of her clinics at our other ranch there in the clinic center. And she's working with a horse stepper, which is a Mustang I started worked with 10 months. He was a really nice horse. He's 7 years old. I put him in the guest ring. He's smart. So he's getting away with things. So that horse needs to go back to school, needs to say, buddy, you're smart. We're not going to jerk around you, but you kind of need in a gentle way. We need to kind of discipline you back so you behave again. So, and I think that it's like you invest in your team, in your people. So, and if you make all that work together, it's never perfect, but then I think you got happy horses. And there are so many sad horses around.
Oh gosh, isn't that true? When you drive the countryside and you see these horses just languishing in a pasture, it does make you kind of sad. And I think it's wonderful that your horses have access to all this activity, which can really enrich their lives. And it sounds like they are also happy at the same time, which is wonderful. I think it's the best combination for horses, honestly.
And there again, sorry to interrupt you. And there again, people that are into horses, they see that. They see, I've never seen a place where the horses are so well cared for. Horses that are sometimes in a pretty dull operation. Every week's the same thing. Well, we have a little bit more variety, but they always observe. And if you ask people, why do you come back? Well, one of the main reasons is you respect your horses. Beginning of the season, they are as fat and juicy as they are at the end of the season before they go into the winter, which is maybe the wrong expression, but you see a lot of operations where when the season is over, the horses, they're like, you see the bones sticking out because they don't really feed them enough. So our horses need to be the whole season. They need to be happy horses. And if you take care of them, they're happy. And I think that's also one of the main ways to reduce liability, because if horses are not happy, they're overused, they're underfed, well, you know what, you're going to have much more problems with horses, because if you're unhappy, you're not going to work that well, and you might buck, and you might have a pain in your back and all that. So it's just trying to but it's all common sense. Again, it's everything we talk about is common sense, whether you work with horses, people, or whatever.
Well, isn't it interesting that common sense is not as common as you might think?
Yeah, it's true.
In almost every industry. So how do you find horses that are suited to what you are asking them to do?
So that is a really, that's a good subject, because there's like different schools on that here. So to start with, we cannot put a guest on a horse that's not fully mature. That is 5 or 6 years old, 6 years in our case. Yes. And you cannot demand that horse when it's not 6 years old. You cannot ask that horse to do some of the heavy work we do. So that wouldn't be, because mentally and physically that horse is not ready for that. So we buy horses that are more and more, we have owners of horses that want to sell their horses, but they want their horses to go to a place where they will be well cared for. I remember a story last year of a Spanish person that actually was in a divorce, and he had 3 horses, and he wanted to sell them, but he didn't want to, they shouldn't be separated, and they shouldn't go to, he says, to a cowboy that's going to be rough on them. And now not all cowboys are rough on them, but he says, so we said, how much do you want for your horses? He says, well, I'm going to just throw out a very, very low number, and you can have my horses. And even one of them is going to have a fall. But his only concern was that horse, those were happy horses. Those were like incredible horses. They were a little heavy, a little too heavy, but they were really happy. And those are lovely horses. Then we have horses we don't like to buy on a sale, because most of the salespeople go to sell the problem horses. On the Mustangs, we buy them. We have horses that were that went to the Supreme Extreme Mustang Makeover and Extreme Mustang Makeover, and then we have horses that we bought through mainly through the Mantles in Wheatland, who actually deal with the BLM. So from those we buy like 1 and 2 year old horses, and then we have like a lot of time to prepare these horses. From the Supreme Extreme Mustang Makeover, you get sometimes horses that are that know an incredible amount of technical stuff, but they're just overused. They've been pressured too much. So some of these horses we buy, and then we put them in the pasture and let them be horse for 6 months. Because if you think about it, 6-year-old horse, like a stallion, being rounded up in the roundups, then being castrated, vaccinated, put on trailers, and then go to an auction. And then 100 days, a lot of pressure on that horse.
A lot
That
of
is
pressure.
a lot for a horse to take. Yeah,
That would
some
be a
of
lot for
these
any
horses, you
breed,
see,
right?
yeah, and some of these horses are not really happy horses, but then you kind of try to make them gentle, and then it works. So it's we're looking for happy horses, and some horses are not happy, but they come in, and if you treat them well, they're gonna be happy again. But some horses that you buy have suffered so much that it's hard for them to become happy horses again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but I think most of the horses, if they come in, you treat them well, they go in. I think a big part is that they can be in a herd with 130 or 100 other horses. They
Sure.
can be horse. I really feel for a horse that sits in a stable the entire day and that cannot go out with his buddies because they're herd animals. And then they usually get pretty excited when you start riding them. So that's why people say your horses are calm. Yeah, we work them. It's like a border collie. Border collie, you take him in an apartment in New York, where he's going to run up the walls. Here, they run a lot. They're with other dogs, and they're happy. Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Very good. Well, I was just going to ask, do you think that horses being with other horses, like you said, they just like to jump into the trailer. Do you feel that the influence of other horses that have had experience at your guest ranch is helpful to the newer horses?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a little bit like when we do the clinics with Farah. And so we were doing the clinic in the winter, and we brought in like 5 young horses, and she does her exercise. We say, okay, let the horses all run around and let them get used to it and all that. And it's a lot that they learn from each other. If we get young horses like young Mustangs in, they're a year old. Well, we put them in the pasture with some good mares that are like good leaders in the herd, and put them, and they will keep those, like they will watch out for those babies, but they also will they apply natural horsemanship. They will be nice to them. But if the little horses get a little bit too excited, like teenagers, they will say, okay, shut down. So I think horses, like a horse doesn't want to go in a trailer, which actually I've never seen it happening here, but you bring another horse in the trailer, it's going to follow. You don't put pressure because that horse wants to be with the other horse. So it's and they all have their buddies. If you study horses, like that wild horses or these horses in the herd, they all have their little buddies and they want to stay with the little buddies. So if a horse is kind of excited to do something, you go and look who's his friend, and instead of fighting that horse, you bring the friend in, and all of a sudden everything is hunky dory.
Yeah, easier.
Yeah.
Really good. So I just want to remind everyone, if you have a question, please use your chat function that is at the bottom of your screen. And I will be reading those questions. And when I'm done with my list of questions, I will read that list of questions and ask Peter those. So Peter, what and who has influenced you the most in your own horsemanship journey and your horsemanship philosophy that you're using on your guest ranch?
So that's a good question. I'm going to take my list out here. It's a long list of people here.
Good. Excellent.
So I would actually divide that up in people around us, like people that I worked with, our guests that give us feedback, and then of course people. I know that some of your members probably want to know, well, which trainers and all that. So so as I said, one of the first one was Klaus Ferdinand Heffling, because I started to take riding lessons in Europe, and of course typically you go to a stable. They say, get on the horse, and they start telling you all technical stuff. And actually, as a rider, you're not even a rider. You're just a person that wants to sit on the horse. You're in survival mode. So you're not going to pay attention. They're yelling and screaming all sorts of technical stuff you don't understand. You don't even know what a horse is. And you're trying to survive on that horse, even when the horse moves. And so that's a bad learning environment. So I would say I learned a lot. Like in leadership and management, I learned a lot from people that didn't do it the right way, or did it the way that didn't suit my culture. Everybody is always looking at what is a great example. but great examples are also bad examples.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that coming out of that thing, I went to my wife and said, I don't think I'm going to go back, because that's not the way I kind of think you need to work with horses. And my wife tells me, so what do you know about horses? I said, I know nothing about horses, but I'm in people's training, and I coach teams, and I train sales teams and marketing teams and technical teams. And I know if I would do it that way, it would not work. So I just started to read. And at that time, the books that you buy were all about technical stuff, how to do this, how to do that, all technical stuff, which is competence, but it's not about horsemanship, which I wanted to first be understanding the horse. So Klaus Ferdinand Heffling was the first one. And then via that, I actually started to, of course, Pirelli was there. This is like 20 years ago. And I stumbled in my search on a video, one of the old videos of Pirelli. And he was talking, and at that time I was struggling. We have 2 teenage boys. I was struggling how to communicate. And so he was talking about how to communicate with horses. And I said, well, whatever he tells there, he says, that's what I need to do with my kids. So I saw I use a lot of Pirelli stuff in the trainings, not talking about horses, but the way he approached things in the trainings with people. So anyway, so Pirelli for me was a big influence also, because he was one of the first ones that actually could structure it in a structured way. Afterwards, it became a little bit too commercial for me, but he structured it in a good way that I could follow. And I said, well, that's actually pretty well detailed. But then also somebody else I really appreciate was Mark Rashid, because Mark Rashid it's all about softness, but he goes into the philosophy, in the whole philosophy also. It's not just about horses, it's about the whole concept, where some trainers will say it's all about horses, but then they kick their dog. Well, that doesn't really work. If you're into this whole concept of respectful relationships, you don't only do that with your horse, you do it with your dog, because it means that you're only gonna not kick your horse when somebody is watching you, but probably around the corner, you're gonna kick that horse anyway. So anyway, so there is like Linda Tellington Jones. She could actually explain it at the time pretty good. Andrew McLean, then Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller from the imprinting, that made a lot of sense to me. I actually tried that. Everybody was laughing with me, but Teppo was the first horse that I approached like that, and he came out pretty good. Lucy Reese, and then well, our horse trainer was a vaquero, Ramon Castro. I learned a lot from him. There's Amy Bauer, and then of course Farah came on board. We learned, and we're still learning a lot from Farah, from her approach, and she's also one of the people that can explain it in a really nice way to break it down. For instance, Ramon is a great horseman, but he's not a teacher, so it's hard to break it down when teaching. But then Tom, our head trainer, I learned a lot from him also. I learned a lot from my wife, who used to be scared of horses. And then from our guests, we have a lot of guests that know a lot about horses. And there again, you observe people that don't really behave that well around horses, you learn from that. And then you see people that are really experts in horsemanship. So from our staff, we have some great people amongst the staff also. So you always, and then not to forget all the horses that I've worked with and that I observed, because horses are great teachers also. So it's a little bit about everything. And then actually, I have a lot of books on leadership and management, and a lot of the leadership things that you read about apply to horses also. That actually influenced me a lot on how to deal with horses also. So anyway.
So do you have people who just talk mostly about leadership, not specifically about horses, but do you have favorite authors, favorite people that you've heard or read that have influenced you also in this journey?
Yeah, there is, like, I've got a couple of books here. For instance, one, Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni, he offers from, in the meantime, I've known him since 25 years. He operates from the Bay Area. So, and he has, like, for instance, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And it's a book that actually is very, very simple. And then there is like books like Good to Great. There are like so many great authors on leadership. Good to Great is actually like the hedgehog principle. If you go, or if you go into an industry, that's the Good to Great actually is one of the books that inspires me whatever I do. So you don't enter in the guest ranch industry if you don't know that in what you're going to do, you can be amongst the top 5 in the industry. So you start doing that and you start thinking about that. So, and when you look for trainers, it's a little bit the same thing. You say, okay, fine. Are these trainers leaders of people and horses? Can they get the best out? Because that's leadership, getting the best out of both things. Are they, how is their ego? What I found, and again, I'm coming new to the industry. I've actually observed with all the trainers we have that a lot of women are actually better clinicians because their ego is a little bit smaller and they make it more about the horse and the person participating, and they have less power, so they have to look for other ways. And usually women are better in cooperating also. A lot of trainers that I've seen are great horsemen, but there is still that little bit of an ego concept. And then and so they will be, again, I'm not generalizing, but a lot of men, including myself maybe when I'm mad, when something does not work the way I want, I get this little grin on my face, and actually women have that less. So I've actually not seen any women. I mean, they can be tough on a horse when it needs to be, and when it needs the pressure, but I've never seen them lose control. I've seen a lot of men losing control on the horses. So with horses in nature or dogs, they don't lose. Well, they might get upset, but if a horse goes out of the way, the other horse will not keep kicking that horse. And when a dog actually attacks and quarrels with another dog, the moment that other dog shows his belly and his throat, it doesn't keep biting the dog. So with humans, you see that a little bit more, and I think it confuses horses. The moment you do it, well, not that I know anything, but I think in leadership with people, that confuses people. So I'm sure it confuses horses also. So anyway, that's my little.
Very, very, very good, Peter. Do you have some idea of, because obviously you're very successful, about how your ranch is going to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years, 20 years? How do you see yourself down?
So we're gonna. I mean, I think in terms of horsemanship and riding, we're about on my list. I mean, we're doing well, but I think that we have still a long way to go and keep becoming even much better and much detailed. So adding the clinic center where Farah operates was actually one of the things that is our next step, because people come to a guest ranch to ride. We do a little bit of natural horsemanship during the week when they're here, but not everybody is interested to do that a full week. So you need to make a difference between a guest ranch and a clinic center. So that's why we started that. But I see that I see that expanding with maybe 8 people a week, not more, because there are too many clinics where there are 15 people and then you don't really get the quality, but maybe 6 to 8 people. But at the same time, it's really good for our horses also, because the horses go in there and they learn something also. And then we see some of our guests that actually are interested to do more clinics, and then they come to the guest ranch. So that means that the more they do that, the more they will understand our concept. But at the same time, they keep pushing our comfort zone. So I think we just need to do much more, even much more around that, and then train. So of course, then we train our staff in that, so the staff becomes better, and we kind of keep challenging ourselves. So one of the things in this area that I'm working on now, as you know, so one of the most challenging endurance rides is in this area, the Bighorn 100. So I'm really fascinated by that, because endurance riding, the way I see it, is also they team up a lot with their horses. So they work very well together, the partnership. So I think it could benefit those. And I could envision maybe having a couple clinic weeks on endurance riding. Not that we want the people that participate to ride 100 miles, but maybe ride 20 or 25 miles with the horses. But you learn a lot by how to even respect the horse more, how to be working more in partnership. And then ultimately, I think that because a lot of the endurance horses, they're Arabians. And like you said, the most important thing on the Arabian is to teach a stop. So now I bought an Arabian horse, and it behaves like it's an incredible, well-behaving horse. So I could see, and a lot of endurance riders, from what I understand, I'm just starting to read about it, is that they don't really spend a lot of time. They spend a lot of time conditioning the horse, but maybe not too much time working with the horse like what Farah does in her clinics. And I think if we would find something to combine the two together, that would really benefit the horse and the rider also, and would actually be less intimidating for people to maybe start to do to ride endurance races, or like do more trail rides or so. So that's maybe one of the other things. So yeah.
Well, and the other thing is that many of the endurance horses are older, and I think part of the reason for that is because you're right. There's a lot of conditioning, but there's not a lot of horsemanship. Sometimes,
Exactly.
not always, but sometimes. And so it takes much, much longer for some of these horses to be rideable for anyone other than an extreme expert and someone who's extremely athletic. And so it's one of the things that I'm doing right now. I'm working with 2 stallions who will probably be endurance horses. And, you know, I want that horse I can sit on and rely on earlier as opposed to later, because the younger they are, the more health, vigor that they have. And so you have the opportunity to play with a horse, ride a horse that has all this athletic ability, but also can be very steady. So that's very exciting to me, Peter, what you're thinking about doing.
But that is also something that I saw. We have a number of quarter horses that I've one in mind, Trigger. It's a horse almost looks like, behaves like an Arabian, but that horse was started the wrong way, and it's always with his head, and it's just it's a great horse, but uncomfortable and incredible. It's almost impossible to stop. And they say, well, it's because it has a lot of energy. And then I look at that other little horse that has a lot of energy also, and that horse is actually, because it was started the right way. It's actually, so it shouldn't be that one horse should be all the way that. So I that just by observing, I think people confuse sometimes. A horse with a lot of energy is a horse where there is no stop. Well, if you drive, coming back to a Porsche, the more horsepower a car has, the better the brakes need to be. Yeah. So it's,
exactly. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Okay, wonderful. Let's go to the questions that I have here in front of me. One actually from Farah, and her question is, what advice do you have for people trying to enter the horse market or trying to be successful in the horse market?
So I think that if you start a business, there are 3 things. Either you have like a great idea or a great talent, or in technology, a great software or a great app, or you have a process, a clear process. How you want to run your organization. And I think 90% of the organizations, it's 90% of what you need to do in any business is going to be the same, and a lot of passion. So if somebody wants to enter the horse world and they're like incredibly talented with horses, then probably they need to find a process of how will I go to market with my talents, and then have the passion. The passion is always the fuel, of course. I'm a pretty passionate person, so you run through a brick wall, and even because if you start a business, that's what you need. You need, even if you line everything out for it theoretically, you still need to have the passion to go to a brick wall to keep your focus, because one of the other things that to be successful, you need to be extremely focused. People will throw a lot of difficult things at you. You need to stay focused. You read a book about, okay, you need to do it this way. Well, yeah, I'm open to feedback, but I think I'm going to stay focused. I will take what fits my focus. So I think focus is important. The other thing that I found with clinicians is that every year I send a lot of emails out to clinicians, some very well-known ones, some less, and it's really amazing how many don't answer the emails.
Wow.
So one of the reasons that we work with that, for instance, Amy Bauer, one of the reasons we started to work with Amy Bauer, because my wife was looking for a good trainer, and I sent out a lot of emails, and her husband is the only one that actually after 2 weeks sent me an email back. So if I compare that to our business, which is one of the reasons that we're successful, is that we have a great team in the office. And in the beginning, it was myself. People send an email, you answer right away, immediately. They want to have 10 emails back and forth, you answer right away. They call you, you pick up the phone and call them back. So it has nothing to do with guest ranching, with horse business or banking. It's just universal. And I'm surprised how many people actually don't do that. So I would think focus, and then just and be very passionate about what you do, and then also see, of course, we can do everything we want. You need to have customers and guests that want to buy into that. Huh? So I can talk a big deal here about the Hideout, but if we don't have guests willing to pay a lot of money to come here, well, you can forget about all your theory.
No business, yes.
So I would say focus and passion, and really know that you have something that is really better than the other person.
Know your market.
Yeah. In trainers, for instance, I think there are too many people out there that call themselves a trainer, that if coming from the industry I come from, that is just too easy. There is like, there are, so need to be really professional also. Huh? Yeah.
Very good. And then from Ada, she has a question. What happens to your senior horses? I mean, as the horses get older, what do you do with them?
So there are, I know this sounds difficult in America and UK, but you know, there are cultures where they love horse meat. So we're Belgians, we eat all our horses. No, it's not true. No. So our oldest horses are probably 20, 21. So those horses are, maybe what we do with them is maybe physically too hard for those horses, but a lot of those horses, they are still incredible for if you use them like 2-3 times a week. So so we look for good homes. So what we do every year, we make a horse inventory. We put every horse we use every day, we write down who rides it, what are the issues, what do we need to do. All the information of the farrier goes in there from the vet. And at the end of the year, we talk about every horse like we talk about every employee. And then we say how long we will be able to have that horse. So we say, well, horse number X might be, well, maybe in 3 years, that horse, we need to find a new home. So we have plenty of guest taxi that want to buy those horses or that want to adopt those horses. So we don't eat them. Huh? We don't eat the horses.
Well, many people would be relieved to hear that, Peter.
I know. It's a bad joke.
And then Farah also had a question. What is the most important concept you have learned in your leadership training to help with your guests?
That's a good one. I think understanding what people want. It's important. When they come here, you need to be there for them, and you need to see them as somebody that wants to have a great experience. And then you have to kind of have the team that is focused and that we're all on the same page. And what I've learned is that leadership is a lot like herding cattle. If you herd cattle, when there's a difficult situation or you need to go on the top of a hill to see where you're going, you need to be in front. The most important thing and the most difficult thing is to stay in the background, not start doing this. Train a team, trust the team, and manage and lead through the team. But when there are difficult times, you need to be there for them. And your job as a leader is to take away their worries, make sure that they have everything they need and that they're really cared for. And then, but when the fight is there, you need to back them up. You need to be loyal like they need to be loyal. And then the other thing is, I think that, so we work with the 3 C's, character, conduct, and competence. You can train for competence, but not for character and conduct. And I compare character and conduct is the horsemanship, and competence is like all the technical things you learn the horse. So the other thing is that if you have somebody in your team, it might be like in our case, the best possible horse person there is. If that person is not a team player, does not buy into your culture, you have to immediately get rid of that person. And actually, if you have a good team will take care of that. So I think, and sometimes it's really hard. You need to be able to allow people to make mistakes, because I made a lot of mistakes also. That's how you learn. Okay, if the same person makes the same mistake every day 10 times, that's kind of a hard thing. But it's sometimes really hard not to step in and to allow people to make mistakes and say, that's not going to go work, but everybody has the right to make a mistake. So I would lead from the background and stay as much as possible in the background. And if you're a doer, it's hard. It's hard because you say, well, I can do that. No, you need to stay in the background. And then listen a lot. And listening is not only listening with your ears, but listening with your eyes, listening with your senses, observe body language. That's really important also. Kind of, you get a feel for your organization and for your guests. So we have a lot of feedback loops. We ask our guests, we ask our staff, we do survey monkeys, we look at all the other feedback we get, and feedback is not always easy, but feedback is a gift. If a person pays a lot of money here to come, and he takes the time to write you even sometimes an angry letter to tell you something, most of the time it's like good letters, but they say, well, you could do this and this, we cannot take it personal. Of course, we're going to take it personal because we're passionate, but that's like a 5-minute thing. You have to get it out of the way and need to say, in good leadership, you need to see it as a gift. It's a gift because that person actually took the time to point something out. Whether you agree or not, whether you're not going to do it, you really need the first reaction needs to be, thank you very much for caring so much. Because if they wouldn't care, they wouldn't put it on paper.
Wouldn't bother. They wouldn't bother, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, I've really enjoyed this hour. It has literally flown by, Peter. So appreciate you taking the time to be with us and to share your experiences up to this point at the Guest Ranch. And so thank you very, very much. Is there, just to finish up, is there anything that you would just like to share with everybody out there about how you feel about horses and how you see the future of horses?
How I feel about horses, I feel strongly about horses. I think horses, they give you like the greatest feeling just to be around horses. You don't need to be even sit on a horse, but the smell of a horse just gives you like a great feeling. The future of horses, I think that, of course, a lot of people don't use horses anymore. Like you see, less people now start to use four-wheelers and all that instead of horses, which is a pity. Well, less in our country because it's challenging. So I think that is a pity for horses. So I think that the future of horses will depend on a lot of enthusiasts like us that actually engage in horses, keep horses. And I think that makes life better for horses also, because I think the people that are now engaged in horses, they see them less as a tool. And yeah, you want to work your horses, you want to give them, but they see horses, they look at horses with more respect, I think. So I think there's a good future for horses. You know, unfortunately, a lot of the work with horses now, because of limitation, needs to take place in the arena, only in the arena. And that's kind of a little bit sad for the horses also. And for the people that they cannot enjoy the horses or what they learn to ride out. Yeah.
Which makes your facility that much more valuable, I think, because I agree with you. I do think horses get bored being in the arena. I think we would feel the same way, I think, if we just went from our bedrooms to our office every day and back and forth.
Exactly. Yeah.
We would also lose interest in what we do. That's why places like yours, I think, are so valuable. And it is a way that people can be with horses in a world where, people aren't with horses every day.
And I think it's important that guest ranches focus more on horses. And because too many people have not been exposed to horses, it's one of the things they want to do. But if you don't teach them, if you don't invest the time in them, and they don't see a good model, they're going to think more and more that horses are like motorcycles, which is the worst thing that can happen for horses. Yes, so I think we have a big responsibility to do it right.
Yeah, and it sounds like you are taking your stewardship of your horses very seriously. And for those of us who feel the way about horses the way we do, it's a wonderful thing to see. So thank you very much.
And not to forget, we have a great team of people working here, because I'm doing all the talking here while they are working. But they're actually like there are a lot of strong leaders and a lot of strong female leaders in our team here that take care of things. So yeah,
very
thank
good.
you
Yes,
very much.
You're welcome. I know that you have guests right now, and that you've taken time from your guests to be with us. So I really, really appreciate that. And we're going to be posting this interview so that many people hopefully will get an opportunity to see it, besides the people who are with us tonight. So thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you very much.
Really, really appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. Thank you, everybody.
You too. For everyone who's here tonight, I just want to remind everybody that, and I've got more, sorry, hang on, I've got more magazines here. This is actually 2 of the magazines that the IHA has produced. We are producing a magazine every quarter so that you can further your horsemanship journey. We have also produced a pathway with which you can learn and teach your horse together. It's called the Grades of Horsemanship. We have that available through our membership in the International Horsemanship Association. You can find us online at internationalhorsemanship.org, where all the information that we have that can help you with your horsemanship journey is available. So thanks to everybody who is here with us tonight. Really hope you enjoyed the interview. I certainly did enjoy talking to Peter, and I want to thank Peter again for joining us tonight. We will have another event sometime next month, and we will announce that on Facebook. Thanks, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.